Before we get into that technical analysis for the SPY, Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, and NVIDIA, I think it's very important that we talk about what Jerome Powell just said. So if you've been paying attention to this channel for about the past couple of weeks here, we have been saying that he is most likely going to pause. So we did get that pause, but he tried to give this inclination of, or implication that he is actually going to keep Fed rate hikes on the table each and every single month. And what we're seeing in the reaction from the market here because of this was actually the fact that we're going higher even when he started to say those types of things. Now, why would the market go higher when he says those types of things? If I actually personally watch every single time Jerome Powell talks, and in the way he said it, it was not convincing. It sounded like he was trying to keep it on the table in order to kind of be able to play both sides, right? Have his cake and eat it too. It really seemed like he was faking being hawkish. It really seemed like he was really trying to convince you that he was hawkish, which in my mind, I mean, I've taken a lot of psychology in my day. So in my mind, that just tells me he's not that hawkish and he's probably not going to raise rates very much more. What can we take from that and look at the market? Okay, so the reason that we are getting this upside here and we are outside of that weekly range, you notice, so I would be a little bit skeptical on this week not closing within that range as we are testing that 200-day moving average and the 20 almost at the same time. Okay, so this easily can come back into this purple zone by the end of the week, and maybe we're seeing signals that are pointing towards that. But what I'm kind of going to talk about in comparison to what he was saying in how the market is reading this, right now, the market is calling his bluff. They're saying you're not going to raise rates again, right? So that's why people are buying stocks. And then at the same time, what if that bluff needs to hold? Okay, so that's what I'm overall trying to get at here. That bluffing needs to hold in order to see more upside here. When we do get outside of these weekly ranges, that's actually where we can see really high moves, right? That's where we can see crashes happen. That's where we can see full recoveries happen. So I'm very interested in looking into tomorrow. And I don't know if people are going to pretty much have the balls to really call this bluff on Jerome Powell as of tomorrow. The reason that I'm saying this as we go into shorter time frames on the SPY is because we do have this gap down here, right? We have this gap down here, and we do see actually some divergence forming on the MACD and RSI at the same time on a 30-minute chart. So we do have divergences right here. We have a small one here. We have a small one here. So what I'm overall thinking this will lead to, if we don't get some kind of big pullback down and see that 2-hour curl over, and then we get some kind of 2-hour divergence, I think that is definitely on the card or in the cards right now. But overall, I am leaning more towards a higher low scenario where we do see some kind of sell off, some more, a little bit more turmoil in the market, and then we do get some kind of reaction. That's just what I am leaning to. But I just wanted to notify you that right now you are outside of those weekly ranges and you do have a divergence on a 30-minute. Now, if this buying were to continue tomorrow, then we could see some upside. But right now, I pay attention to these weekly ranges. They actually work pretty dang well. So we do have divergence outside of these ranges right now, and it's a sign that we should be a little bit more cautious and be looking for some kind of pullback down into this purple zone before the end of the week. And the Qs here, you can see that we're just running right into that 20-day moving average. Okay, so we're running right into it. How are we going to react? Are there sellers there? And the answer is yes, there are. So the way we can think about this is this little bundle in here, these 4 days of price action, right? Okay, 3 days here were followed by 2 extremely bearish days, right? Some big sell-offs in the market. So there are going to be people who are currently underwater at this level and will take profit. Now, will the people who bought into this run start to sell is the question that we have to answer if we're going to go get some kind of test of the actual 200 in the near future. But like I said, I am overall leaning towards some kind of higher low scenario starting to add up. Okay, higher low scenario seems to be, at least for my opinion, the most likely scenario at this point. Doesn't mean I'm not open to a full reversal and cutting this low and making a new one, and then we get some divergences and we'll see from there. But it doesn't mean I'm also not open to this starting to go ballistic. Okay, now the only thing is I did add some monthly ranges in here. We're at the first day of the month, so it's important to update those monthly ranges, and I'm going to teach you how to make these in my course that I am currently creating. Big difference between the SPY and the Qs right now is we do not see that divergence. Okay, we saw that divergence on the SPY, but we don't necessarily see that. But right now you do have a MACD on a 30-minute that is pretty overextended, and maybe that means that we do want to go, down into this area to find some buyers. And this is some good liquidity in here, so maybe we do want to come back into this zone, collect some more buyers, and then start to move upward. Right now, what I'm kind of paying attention to is this little area up here. This part here could be kind of what like NVIDIA was doing, right? This could be your this could be your starting to form that right shoulder. Maybe we get some kind of pullback down into these areas, and then you can see on your chart right in front of you, we would have a left, a head, and a right shoulder. I just want to reiterate that we are outside of those weekly expected moves, but if people do continue to call Jerome Powell's bluff, we could actually see more buying into tomorrow. But we do have things like earnings, Apple earnings, and things like that, which I don't necessarily like to trade around. I think it's a high likelihood that we go back into this purple zone, and it's likely that we do actually cut this low and come down and try to get an actual test of that 200, which is lying right around 340. Okay, so it will be around 340 by the time we get that test. It's possible. I just want you to be open to all scenarios. A bullish thing that could happen from right here is we call Jerome Powell's bluff and we keep moving upward. And then the bearish side to this would be that we are going to get some kind of closing within this purple zone by the end of the week. Now, Apple, right before its earnings, we're seeing a very strong day. We're going up almost 2% in one day. We're taking back all of the moving averages except for the 50. The 50 is sitting right at the top of our purple zone, but it doesn't mean we can't see some kind of selling as of tomorrow to bring us down to lower levels. The main thing I want you to pay attention to on Apple is you do have that triple divergence. It is proven here on the MACD. It's proven down here on the RSI. So we can see a very positive reaction from this earnings. But I want to clarify this, okay? Just because we have divergences does not mean they have to play out to the upside. Earnings is something that nobody knows the info except for people at Apple. So we have to pay attention to those actual numbers. If they just report something bad, you can see this flush really quickly. But as of right now, we have some good things going for Apple. Okay, we did retake this purple zone. That's something we talked about in previous episodes. So thank you so much if you are subscribed and you did, follow some of this info. Once we're able to retake that zone, you can see we gained some strength because there's buyers that like to buy in this area and they see it as a good investment opportunity once we are able to get in this zone. Right now, it still could hold as resistance. So we could see a full reversal from here. We could see just a dip down before earnings in order to proceed to go higher. But I would be paying attention to this little mini trend here, okay? If we do break that mini trend, it's very likely that we are going to test the bottom here, okay? This previous low here, we could go test that level of about 166. And if that does break, then we're going to be looking at the bottom here of our wedge, okay? So if we do see a full breakdown, maybe even earnings are bad, then I would be paying attention to this little zone down here between 162 and 164. Tesla, you're getting a pretty nice reversal bar here, okay? You're getting a reversal bar. The only problem is you're below all of the moving averages. All of these moving averages are sitting above you, and they can all hold as resistance, okay? And we're actually coming back into that point of 207.42 that we were saying we could pay attention to, that we kind of reacted from around here. So that can hold as resistance as well. Maybe we need to dip a little bit lower, maybe even into this 190.10 before we actually get a full reversal. But as of today, that looks like a pretty good candle, but you're not reversing, okay? You're not getting that cross on the MACD or anything like that. So it's still a time to be a little bit careful. Now, what led us to believe that Tesla was going to get a bounce, from these lows in here was this divergence, okay? You see the two lows here, and then we actually have that divergence here on the MACD. So you're seeing that play out to the upside as of right now. It doesn't mean that we can't start to head a little bit lower with some bad news or a bad reaction in the market and test this low one more time. It doesn't mean that we can't head into a little bit better price to get some more buyers, okay? But right now you are seeing that start to play out to the upside, and you're seeing a buy signal pop up. Tesla looks like it wants to reverse from here, but we do have a lot of numbers coming out, and we even have some very important data coming out Friday morning that we'll talk about in tomorrow's episode. One stock that likes to surprise me again and again this week is Amazon. We're getting some major strength in Amazon. The only reason I'm worried about this, and I would have liked some sellers to step in, is to, reconnect with some of these moving averages, go gain a little bit more ground with some more buyers to give this another healthier move, I guess. Now, we aren't overbought or anything like that, but you are in the top of that Bollinger Band. So we can see those sellers step in. And this is what I'm talking about when I say it's kind of a moment where you have to say, are they really going to call Jerome Powell's bluff? Are we really going to keep pushing up and up and up? And we very well might. Now, we could get some kind of higher low scenario in Amazon because their earnings were seen as very good. And I overall really want you to pay attention to how these divergences can play out. Once we do get that daily divergence to form, and then we do get some good news like earnings, we can see a big reaction, right? We get those big reactions, and you see, I think Amazon is up 15 or 16% in just like 4 days. So that's pretty crazy. The reason I'm still a little bit skeptical on Amazon, and it's not so much like, oh, we need to reverse and go fill this gap way down here, right? I don't necessarily see us filling that gap in the near future, but we do like to fill gaps within, 5 trading sessions 80% of the time. But what I really wanted to point out here is, yes, we have this flatness down here on the RSI. It's pretty flat. We've been overbought for quite some time, for days now. That stuff does happen around earnings, so it's not something really to pay attention to, but I really want to pay attention to this very steep divergence on the MACD on a 30-minute. This MACD can actually prove to roll over, and the only thing that I'm going to pay attention to is if we actually get through that center line and we're not able to get back above it into positive territory if we do see some kind of pullback in Amazon. Okay, so we want to pay attention to if the MACD remains in negative territory, then we can see a further breakdown, right? But if it is able to come down into lower levels, find some buyers, and then see a move upward, that is actually going to remain in positive territory, and we can see another leg higher in Amazon. NVIDIA, we were saying there was going to probably be a bounce from these levels, and we'll go into a shorter time frame to talk about how we actually found that. And the overall thing we've been talking about in NVIDIA was this head and shoulders. It's really obvious, and a lot of the time, the really obvious ones like to fake people out. Now, this could still play out to the downside. I don't want to, stop our thinking on this. This could just be another lip, kind of like over here on the left side here. We actually could see another lip form like that before you head to lower levels. Overall, I really would like a test of this level of about 375. I think if we do come down in that level, it would be very nice as a trader to see if you get rejection at this neckline, or if you're able to actually take it back after that happens. I think that would be very interesting. I do think that we're going to see a little bit wonkier price action over the next few days in NVIDIA. How did we know that there was going to be a bounce in NVIDIA? Okay, we didn't necessarily know for sure, right? That's not what technical analysis is. You're just playing the probabilities. And we can see that the momentum here between these lows was starting to die out. We have this little divergence here. And then when that does start to cross on the MACD, if you bought your position, say right here, we do get a hip fire scare move down to take out some stops. So they took out the stops at this level, and then they pushed this higher. So if you were able to catch a little trade here, congratulations, good job. We're approaching that positive territory on the MACD, and that's what I think we need to pay attention to. If this is able to get into positive territory on the MACD with some strength, that would be good news. If this actually does roll over from here, we actually could see that we are in negative territory still down in here, and we could roll over and head to lower levels. So we really want to pay attention to this low. But if you did make this little play here with this 2-hour chart, congratulations, good job. Give yourself a pat on the back. The bond market is reacting from that news that we got with Jerome Powell today. Okay, so we did get that pause. And what did I say would happen? If we do get that pause, we're going to see us start to head to lower levels pretty quickly. So we could see this continue to head downward. And what I'm going to be paying attention to over the next week or two is if there is some kind of difference between high yield growth, right? HYG, which is something we talk about. We're not going to talk about it today, but we pay attention to high yield growth. And we're going to pay attention to how the SPY looks compared to it. Because if this actually starts to head down and say high yield growth actually heads down and SPY continues to go up, we can pay attention to that and say, hey, we might need to actually head lower instead of higher at this point. Now, TLT, we can see the opposite of the 10-year yield here. We are getting a good reaction, okay? The only problem is we are still within this channel, okay? We've been in this selling channel for quite some time. And as I go into smaller time frames, we're just going to notice how close we are getting to that top of the channel, okay? So we're paying attention to this, and we do like to actually hit these channels before we start to see selling. What I'm actually paying attention to on the MACD, on TLT, is we do have some divergence here, but overall we look like it's almost like a chart, right? We're starting to get this coiling up of the MACD, and which way is this going to go? If people do believe Jerome Powell saying that he can raise rates again, or he is very willing to raise rates again, very dependent on the financials, right? Then this can make another push lower. But if we really buy into he's pausing now, he's not going to raise rates again. If these TLT traders see it that way, we can see a positive reaction in TLT, which will bring down that 10-year yield. And that's why I'm going to be paying close attention to the SPY versus the versus HYG, right? If the SPY actually starts to sell off and make some kind of downward move while HYG actually makes that upward move, I'm going to notify you. I'll put it in my video, and it's just something to really pay attention to. The VIX, we were paying attention to that sell signal yesterday, that confirmation that we wanted some more downside in the VIX, and we did get more downside in the VIX. So you're seeing that proven here. Now we were down 7%, not 10%. Darn it. Usually we can do that 85% chance of an up day within 2 trading days if it's down by 10%. But the important thing here is you're still holding above that 50. You're right on that 50. You're right on this trend line. We're not firmly breaking it at this point, so we could see another reaction in the VIX before we get that downward move. The good part about the VIX is right here, okay? So we actually see this flatness or this even downward move in the VIX, and that could have been a great signal to pay attention to. We mentioned it, I think last week, or a few days ago, I think it was last week that we mentioned this. The SPY was heading to lower levels, which actually means the VIX should look like this, right? It should be an upward move, but it actually came in pretty flat, or even down if you want to include the wick here. So that can be a signal that we can also use in the future. And maybe I'll even touch on this in my course because that's something good to pay attention to. And the VIX is kind of why I'm leaning towards maybe a low or higher low scenario, is just because when the VIX does actually cross on this MACD, you can see that on the RSI, we are starting to cross that center line. So this divergence that we actually had on the RSI, I overall was saying, okay, once this actually crosses on the MACD, I'll believe what the VIX is trying to tell me, right? I'll believe in this divergence. And that actually is starting to happen. So I'm glad it actually performed that way. And it doesn't mean that we can't get some kind of move, with some selling coming in, because Jerome Powell did still leave rate hikes on the table. I think that he was being a little bit like, I don't think he really believed in what he was saying, but that doesn't mean I can't be wrong, and we can't see the market also get scared out by this with some kind of, move upward in the VIX tomorrow. So I just want to pay attention to this. Does this start to actually break this trend line, close below the 50, firmly close below all of this and start to head to lower levels? That's what I'm going to pay attention to in the VIX. Sorry, my camera's blurry. I think someone's watching Netflix or something in the other room, so it gets a little wonky when that happens. So the main takeaway from this video is, are we actually as a market going to call Jerome Powell's bluff and continue to push stocks higher? Or are we going to react from those divergences that we just pointed out on the SPY early on in this video and kind of get that fear set in and say, hey, he did say that these Fed rate hikes still could be on the table every single month with data that comes out. So we need to be a little bit cautious here. We need to see if the market is going to call the bluff or actually pull back, because we are seeing that he actually will raise rates if he has to. Congrats to us. We got that pause that we've been talking about for a couple of weeks, but are we actually going to, call that bluff? I'm very interested to see how that turns out. Now, I thank you so much for watching these videos and liking and subscribing. You guys are awesome. I hope you guys have a great night tonight and have all the luck in the world trading tomorrow. All right. Peace.